Now let's look at the problem of finding least common denominators with rational expressions. So as a first example, let's look at this one. Find the LCD of 8x, y to the third, and 12y. The trick to this problem is that these terms are both simple terms in which you simply have letters and numbers multiplied together. And in that case, finding the LCD is pretty easy. First, you look at the numbers 8 and 12, and you find the LCD of 8 and 12. The LCD of 8 and 12, I think, is 24. If you're ever not sure, what you can do is you can list out all the multiples of 8, 16, 24, 32, etc. And of 12, 24, and 36. And find the smallest number, which is a multiple of both of them. In this case, 24. So that's your LCD. And then with the variables, it's even easier. You simply look at every variable that appears. In this case, there's an x, so write an x down. And then there's a y, so write a y down. And you write down each variable to the power which is the greatest. So here there's just an x, so you leave it an x. Here you have a y3 and a y. The largest power is a y to the third, so that's your LCD right there. Now be careful there. Even though there's a y in both of them, you don't care. You only care which one has the highest power. For example, if this was find the least common denominator of 8x, y to the third, and 12y squared, the answer would be exactly the same. First you'd find the least common denominator between 8 and 12, which is 24. Then you would write down every variable that shows up, x and y, to whichever power is greatest. Here you have x, x to the 1, and the third. So in that case, it would have exactly the same answer. A slightly more difficult problem, actually this is the same problem. Find the least common denominator of 3x, 15x squared, plus 2, 20x to the third. First you find the LCD of 15 and 20. I think that's going to be, let's see, 15, 30, well let's see, 15, 30, 45, 60, I think it's going to be 60, 20, 40, 60. Yes, the least common denominator is going to be 60. What variables show up? There's an x, and then there's a y. What's the largest power of x? In this case, it's x squared, and y, just plain y. And that's your LCD right there. Here's a slightly more difficult problem where you have complex terms, that is, terms which are have terms which are connected with plus or minus signs. The key for here is the first thing you want to do whenever you find the LCD is factor. So this is an ironclad rule, and that is factor first. So let's factor 20x squared y. I think I can take a 2 out there. So I take a 2, I can take a 2x out, 2x, and that would be x minus 5. Remember, when you take a 2 out, you divide everything by 2. When you take an x out, you divide everything by x. Well, let's look at this. X squared plus 2x minus 5. X squared plus 2x minus 35. That's factoring a trinomial. So if you have a positive and a negative, that means you'll break it up into one positive and one negative. And you need to find two numbers that multiply to 35 and add to 2. Sometimes I write off to the side 35. Well, that's actually easy. It's 5 and 7. You want a positive 2, so that means it's a negative 5 and a positive 7. Positive 7 and negative 5. Once you factor those two, what you do is you write down every term that shows up. Now, when you have the terms that are just multiplied, so that's a 2x, an x minus 5 shows up, and an x plus 7 shows up, and that's going to be your LCD. Let's look at one more example. Let's say that we wanted to find the least common denominator. And this time let's go 3x squared minus 24x And let's go x squared minus, let's go minus 13x plus 40. So what's the first rule? The first rule when you're finding LCDs, when the terms are compound terms like this, is you're going to factor first. Then you're going to take a 3x out. Here, this is a trinomial. Be careful here. This is a negative, and then C is a positive. C is a positive, and B is a negative. They're going to end up with two negatives. And you're going to find two numbers that multiply to 40 and add to 13. Let's see, 4 and 10, 2 and 20, 5 and 8. 5 and 8, I think. 8, 9, 10, 13. It's 5 and 8. And they're both going to be negative. So now your LCD, in this case, is going to be 3x times x minus 8 times x minus 5. Now see what the rule is. The rule is write down every term that shows up. Now x minus 8 shows up twice, but that doesn't matter. You just write it down once, and that's your LCD. And that's how you find least common denominators of rational expressions.